Hi, I'm Melissa with onlinelabels.com, and today I'm going to show you some design tips that will make printing your labels easier and faster. If you have ever printed your own labels before, you know how important it is to have a streamlined and easy printing process. Not only will this make a more efficient use of your time, it can also reduce misprinted sheets and help make your labels look more professional. In previous videos, we've covered how to properly align your label sheets to avoid misprints, but there are also steps you can take when designing your labels to make sure they are best prepared for printing. In this video, we will go over things like non-printable margins, bleed, and even some tips that are specific to designing for circle labels. The first thing to consider when designing your labels is the non-printable margins on your label sheets. Most household printers can't print all the way to the edge of a sheet. These areas that the print head can't reach are called the non-printable margins. While most of our label sheets are designed to be fully printable in most printers, depending on the size of your non-printable margins and the placement of your labels on your label sheet, you may have to make some adjustments to your design so it doesn't get cut off during printing. To determine the size of your printer's non-printable margins, we have a tool you can download from our site. Just print it out and you should be able to determine the size of your printer's non-printable margins. There's a link for it in the description below. If the non-printable margins interfere with the labels on your sheet, you can alter your design so that those areas of the labels remain blank. This could include removing a background or border. The next thing to consider is adding bleed when designing your labels. Adding bleed to your design just means extending your design past the border of your label. This is done to adjust for paper shifting inside the printer. If your sheet moves slightly while moving through the printer, it could result in there being unprinted areas on your labels. The bleed on your design should keep you covered in case this happens. When adding bleed to your design, you should just extend your background or border past the label edge. Do not include any key text or images from your design in your bleed since it may not be printed on the label. Your bleed should extend about 1/8 of an inch past the label's edge. If you design your labels in Maestro Label Designer, you can turn on bleed guidelines to see how far your bleed should go. Also, if you set a background color, a bleed will automatically be applied to your design. Similar to bleed, you should also observe safe zones when designing your label. Safe zones help prevent your design from butting up against the edge of your label and potentially being cut off during printing. We recommend giving your design about 1/8 of an inch of space from the edge of your label. Your safe zones don't have to be left empty though. They can still contain parts of your design, like the background and border. Just make sure to leave any important elements of your design, like text or logos, out of the safe zones. We also have safe zone guidelines in Maestro Label Designer to make this easier. If you're designing for circle labels, there are a couple other things to consider. Shifted prints tend to be more noticeable on circle labels than other label shapes. Because of this, we suggest omitting concentric circles from your design. If your sheets experience any shifting while printing, it will be much more noticeable if there is a circle that is also centered in your design. The same applies to borders on circle labels. If you still want to include a border, we recommend making it thicker than you usually would. This should make it harder to notice any shifting. Keep in mind that these are just suggestions we have to make printing on circle labels easier. If your design needs concentric circles or a border, you can still achieve this. It may just take some extra time and work to get it right. If you follow these tips and consider non-printable margins, bleed, and safe zones when designing your labels, you should have a much more efficient printing process. Please drop any questions or comments below and visit onlinelabels.com for even more helpful tips or to shop our massive selection of labels and sticker paper.